How locked down is your iPhone? Hi, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into episode 215 of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. Got a good password for your iPhone using Touch ID or Face ID? Then you're protected. Probably. We'll look at various states of data on iOS, plus a follow-up to Apple flouting the firewall. Thanks for joining in for this edition of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. When was the last time you powered off your iPhone? I don't mean put it to sleep. I don't mean locked it. I mean turn the thing all the way completely off. A couple of days ago, a week, maybe a month. Yeah, whenever it was, a new study by Johns Hopkins University says that is the last time your data was truly secure. Now, that's not to say that your data isn't secure. It is. Probably. It depends on who besides you is trying to access it. The average criminal will not be able to access the data on your iPhone if you've got it locked, with Face ID or Touch ID or a password, let's say. As long as your password isn't 1234 or something like that. I mean, they could try a bunch of different passwords, but that gets harder to do as it goes, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Both Wired and Apple Insider have covered the Johns Hopkins study. We'll go over what the study found, what we have to worry about, and what we can do to mitigate that worry. Now, I said that the last time that your iPhone was completely off was the last time it was truly secure. That's because of the various states Apple puts your data in. According to Wired, when an iPhone has been off and boots up, all the data is in a state that Apple calls complete protection. The user has to unlock the device before anything else can really happen, and the device's privacy protections are very high. You could still be forced to unlock your phone, of course, but existing forensic tools would have a difficult time pulling any readable data off it. Once you've unlocked your phone the first time after reboot, though, a lot of data moves into a different mode. Apple calls it protected until first user authentication, but researchers a lot of times just call it after first unlock, or AFU. Wired goes on to say when data is in the complete protection state, the keys to decrypt it are stored deep within the operating system and encrypted themselves. But once you unlock your device for the first time after reboot, lots of encryption keys start getting stored in quick access memory, even while the phone is locked. The piece actually outlines a good demo of how this works. If somebody calls you and it's somebody you know, somebody whose number you have in your contacts, their name turns up on your screen. But if your phone has been powered off and powered back on, but is still in a complete protection state, in other words, if you haven't unlocked your phone yet, when your friend who is in your contacts calls, it's only their number that'll show up on the screen, not their name. Wired says that's because the keys to decrypt your address book aren't in memory yet. That's cool. Except AFU is pretty much where your phone lives, right? Because seriously, when is the last time you completely powered off your iPhone? Now, again, this is not a big deal. The average bad guy can't do anything with an iPhone that's just been locked. They would need your face or your finger or your password. It's not the average bad guy that Johns Hopkins was worried about. When your phone is in AFU, a bad guy can tackle certain vulnerabilities in iOS. They can get the encryption keys that have been brought closer to the surface, and then they can start pulling readable data off your device. And so could good guys. And we can settle who's a good guy and who's a bad guy after we figure out how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It is those vulnerabilities that are used by companies like Celebrite and Grayshift, companies that sell systems to law enforcement, that they use to get info off of phones. So it sounds like we're in this weird place. Apple wants to make our phones easy for us to use. They also want to make them difficult for criminals to access, and maybe we leave off the part about law enforcement for now. Apple is upfront about the criminal thing, obviously. The company told Wired that its security work is focused on protecting users from hackers, thieves, and criminals looking to steal personal information. The types of attacks the researchers are looking at are very costly to develop. They require physical access to the target device and only work until Apple patches the vulnerabilities they exploit. An Apple spokesperson is actually quoted in the piece, saying Apple devices are designed with multiple layers of security in order to protect against a wide range of potential threats, and we work constantly to add new protections for our users' data. As customers continue to increase the amount of sensitive information they store on their devices, we will continue to develop additional protections in both hardware and software to protect their data. It's interesting, actually. Apple does exert different levels of security depending on the information that's being protected. Or it lets developers do that at times. According to the piece, Apple provides the option for developers to keep some data under more stringent, complete protection locks all the time. That would be great for, like, banking apps, for example. The piece says Android does not have that mechanism after first unlock. Forensic tools exploiting the right vulnerability can grab even more decryption keys and ultimately access even more data on an Android phone. Now, if you're listening to this show, you're probably on an iPhone. If you're an Android user, well, I got nothing for you specifically, though some of what Apple Insider suggests may apply to you as well. Because, yeah, Apple Insider tackles this part. While Wired outlines the issue, Apple Insider actually hits ways you can fight it. Which is to say, ways that you can make sure that anybody who has your phone would have a harder time accessing the information on it. Of course, they largely involve taking it out of AFU. Now, I alluded to the philosophical questions earlier. Let's keep avoiding those. Instead, let's assume that it's only bad guys that we're worried about. You can find Celebrite devices on eBay. You're not supposed to be able to. Celebrite discourages law enforcement from selling those devices. That doesn't always seem to work, though. Also, schools are reportedly buying these devices now. That's kind of uncool. If you want to not worry about such a situation, Apple Insider has a few ideas. First, know how to access emergency SOS mode. Quickest way to do that, press the volume up button and the power button at the same time for 5 seconds. The piece says that triggers an emergency lockdown. You can't open the phone with biometrics at that point. Have to use your passcode. You can also call 911, or you can shut the phone down, taking it out of AFU. Next, use an alphanumeric passcode. Lots of forensic tools actually work by guessing passcodes, so make them harder to guess. The longer your passcode, the harder it is to crack, says Apple Insider. By adding a couple of letters and a special character, the piece says, you'll increase the time it takes to guess the passcode from hours to hundreds of years. Just make sure it's a passcode you can remember. Next, erase all the data after 10 failed passcodes. This is an option for your iPhone. Somebody can try to access your iPhone 5 times, getting the password wrong each time, and that is no big deal. It's the 6th time that it starts to get dicey. After 5 failed attempts, the piece says, you'll be blocked by a timer that gets longer and longer until you're waiting a full hour after the 9th attempt. With this option on, the 10th wrong attempt will restore your iPhone to factory settings, so say goodbye to the on-device data. Your next option, just do local backups. Apple Insider sees this one as the most extreme level of data protection. Instead of letting your info back up to iCloud, you can perform a local backup by connecting your iPhone to your Mac. The piece says doing this will enable a local encrypted option, which will secure the backup behind a passcode you choose. Again, though, make sure it's a password you will remember. Forget the password and the backup is lost forever. And finally, the last way to not worry about this, don't worry about it. Continue as normal. The way Apple Insider sees it, Apple is already doing everything it can to thwart bad actors from breaching your data. Your iCloud data is safe too and can only be accessed when a proper warrant is presented. Use your iPhone as normal and live your life, says Apple Insider. The likelihood of an average iPhone user encountering a forensic tool or wealthy criminal seeking what's on your iPhone is slim to none. The protections Apple provides are enough to keep your data safe and will only improve with time. We'll follow up on Apple flouting the firewall in a moment, but first a word about MacScan 3 from Secure Mac. Recent numbers from Canalys say Mac sales grew 16% in 2020. Gartner says Mac sales were up over 22%, while IDC says they were up 29%. Okay, they don't agree on the exact numbers, but they do all agree on one thing. Lots of new Macs in 2020. You know what that means? Lots of new targets for bad guys. Protect your digital self with MacScan 3. MacScan 3 is a great defense against malicious software attacks aimed at your Mac. It's developed by Secure Mac, trusted names in computer security and developers of exceptional security software for the Mac for over 20 years. MacScan 3 detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your machine. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today at securemac.com/MacScan. Then once you decide to buy for less. You can take a little off your subscription to MacScan 3 with offer code CHECKLIST. Try it first. Watch it kick those tracking cookies to the curb. Then when you're ready to buy for less with offer code CHECKLIST at securemac.com/MacScan. Following up on a story we hit here at the beginning of last month, on Checklist 209, we talked with Patrick Wardle about Apple carving out exceptions for itself in the firewalls that you set up on your Mac. According to a piece from 9to5 Mac, back in November, some developers raised concerns due to a change in macOS Big Sur, which allowed Apple apps to bypass firewall filters in any situation. You might think that's annoying, though Patrick ran a test that showed such a bypass posed a verifiable security risk. He found that he was able to sort of piggyback on the processes Apple was allowing through. Thankfully, he's a good guy, but he proved that bad guys could do it too, meaning they could get stuff onto your computer that you didn't want there and theoretically start stealing data that you didn't want them to take. We covered that a lot more in depth on checklist number 209, Apple Flouts the Firewall. If you haven't heard that one, you might want to give it a listen. There is good news, though. Apple is stopping that. While the bypasses are still there, they shouldn't be there for long. The 9to5 Mac piece that I mentioned says Patrick's been poking around in the macOS 11.2 beta. He says the firewall exceptions Apple installed have been removed. So once that's out to the rest of us, the piece says Apple's apps will no longer bypass third-party firewalls, and users can once again monitor their traffic on the web. Hey, if you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. There you'll find notes for this show, for the last show we did, for all the shows we've ever done, and you can listen to them right there as well. It all starts in one place, securemac.com/checklist. securemac.com/checklist. They're also running some pretty neat articles over on the Checklist site. Go to checklist.com and click the button that says News. Lots of cool stuff there. If you have a question you would like to ask or a topic you would like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. That address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. And we'll talk to you next week.